G'day and welcome back to the channel, Ginja Ninja's Movie Reviews. I am the Ginja Ninja and these are my Trashy Tuesday movie reviews. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in, stopping by and checking it out. And if you checked out last week's video, you know what we're in for this week. We are looking at the Species franchise as part of Trashy Tuesday. I had a hankering for some alien trashy films, and look, let's be honest, the Species series, it's not the greatest, but it's definitely not the worst so far. Today we are looking at Species 2 from 1998, directed by Peter Medak. The film stars Michael Madsen, Marg Helgenberger, Justin Lazard, James Cromwell, and, of course, Natasha Henstridge. The plot: an astronaut gets infected with alien DNA during the first mission on Mars and runs amok on Earth. Preston and Laura team up with a peaceful, genetically re-engineered Sil to track the monster down. Yeah. Alright, so look, in the realm of sci-fi horror sequels, Species 2 stands as a particularly strange specimen. It's not quite self-aware enough to be cult campy, but it's too unhinged to be taken seriously. And this comes down to a number of factors. The 1998 follow-up to the 1995 sleeper hit Species, it really does turn up the sleaze and the gore and the nonsense. It's got all those things going for it, and it does craft a film that it's equal parts frustrating and entertaining in so many ways. It wants to be something, but it doesn't quite get there. So it's time to get into the dreaded territory of sequels with Species 2. So kicking it off with the cast, we have Michael Madsen returning as the tough, no-nonsense Preston Lennox, and that adds some continuity from the first film. Unfortunately, he does come off as rather bored of being there. Whether that's his character or his portrayal of the character is hard to say, but it actually works in the context of the film. He's giving off a vibe of he's been there, done that. And that actually works for both the character, but it feels like it's actually the actor who's just in there for a paycheck, really. Marg Helgenberger again takes on the role of Dr. Laura Baker. Very interesting role because whilst it is the same character, it does feel like a very different character in relation to who she was in the first one to who she is now. And that could be the character evolving as they do, but we're not really given any reason for that. Yes, her and Preston didn't continue their relationship, which was established in the first film, but it doesn't give a reason for her to now be genetically engineering a new alien hybrid. Unfortunately, some of her acting isn't that great. Now, that comes down to the script giving her far less to work with, but also her performance.
But it's not a perfect match. Obviously, Eve has not left the compound, which means, gentlemen, that there's another one out there.
At times, her line delivery is extremely over the top and feels out of place. It's almost like it should be in a B grade or even a C grade shark movie directed by Mark Polonia.
Eve! Oh, you killed her, you disgusting son of a bitch!
The big addition to the cast is Justin Lazard, who plays the astronaut Patrick Ross, who's a character who begins out as a national hero, returning from the first manned mission to Mars, but then devolves into this murderous, sex-crazed alien hybrid. Now, Lazard's performance is oddly committed, and it walks a very fine line between wooden and wild. And it's not good acting per se, but it is fascinating to watch. And then there's Natasha Henstridge, who returns to the screen as Eve, the clone of the original alien-human hybrid, Sil. Now, she is magnetic on screen, she's statuesque, she's mysterious, but she's also oddly sympathetic. Even the material does somewhat reduce her to a sex object with a psychic connection to Justin Lazard's character, with really violent instincts. Her performance, it's remarkably restrained given the lunacy that's surrounding her. We also have James Cromwell, who pops in as Patrick Ross's father. He's also a high-ranking senator, so yeah, giving a bit of gravitas to the role, even though it is quite brief in what we see him in. George Zunder and Mykelti Williamson, hope I'm pronouncing that right because we all know I'm pretty shit with names, they round out the cast, but unfortunately they don't bring a lot to the roles. They're good, but they don't bring any life to the ensemble overall, and no one escapes the script unscathed. Okay, so now we move on to the directing and the writing, and this film is directed by Peter Medak, who also directed The Changeling, the original creepy as horror film. If you haven't seen The Changeling, I highly recommend you do. But the film tries to balance sci-fi horror with erotic thriller elements, but it often veers into very campy territory. His direction is competent, but in terms of pacing and action, it kind of leans more into the exploitation angle of these without any hesitation, and it creates a very distinct tone, but it lacks that atmospheric tension and horror finesse that the original had. The tone itself does feel uneven, and it's part gore fest, part B-movie spectacle, and part sex escapade. And that might appeal to cult fans, but not to a broader audience. And a lot of this comes down to the screenplay. Species 2 is a mess of pseudoscientific exposition and clunky one-liners and gratuitous sex scenes. Wasn't complaining when I first saw this, but you know, it is what it is. But these things almost feel like outtakes from an adult film, if you know what I mean. The first film at least flirted with questions of identity, genetics, and also survival instinct, whereas this sequel chucks all that out the window in favor of endless references to mating, reproduction, and alien birthing rituals that are as ridiculous as they are grotesque. And yeah, that tentacle scene, that was pretty full on. It's kind of hard to tell if Species 2 wants to be a satirical B-movie or if it's a serious continuation of the franchise at this stage. Now, either way, the script doesn't serve the cast or the concept very well. The dialogue, again, very exposition heavy and often laughably bad.
Oh, this is awful. This is just awful.
You know, as I mentioned, there is Marg Helgenberger, her character, Laura Ross. There is one scene where she says something off camera and it just sounds so bad and so forced that it's almost like it was dubbed in after the fact. Not 100% sure, but that's what it felt like to me. That said, there is a certain pulpy energy to all of it that keeps things from getting boring. You know, it's not smart, but it's very rarely dull.
Oh my God.
So now moving on to the effects. And look, this is where Species 2 really leans into its personal identity. The film is soaked with blood and guts and creature design straight out of H.R. Giger's worst fever dreams. In fact, he was again credited with the creature design, though many of the effects lack the nightmarish elegance of the original Seal concept. The practical effects in this one are gruesome. Like I said, the alien birth scenes, deeply unpleasant to watch, but they are done in the most 90s way imaginable. Alien tentacles that burst forth with this visceral glee it's just sickly creative, and it leans into a body horror sort of feel that's not a consistent aesthetic with the overall film. Unfortunately, some of the computer-generated effects have not aged well. Even in 1998, some of the digital effects do look really cheap and quite dated. Today, they are laughably bad. The film's climatic hybrid creature is very ambitious, but it comes off as quite rubbery rather than terrifying, and the way it moves feels very... not robotic, but almost like I don't know, it has a weird feel when it moves its arms. And there is a scene where it backhands the now alienized Eve in this one, and virtually it kills her in one hit, which I disagree with, because literally the scene before that, we see Eve taking multiple gunshots. Completely gone. Like, should be dead, but no. Then, backhand from the Justin Lazard's Patrick Ross alien creature. Just didn't make that sense. Looked good, though. I will give it that. Like, the effects in that did look good, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but there's a lot about this movie that's good, but also doesn't work as well. And that's a bit of an issue overall. But the effects, mostly not bad. Now on to rewatchability. And look, back when this first came out, much like the original, I watched this a lot. And I'm not going to lie, the main draw card was Natasha Henstridge. But over the years, this movie has failed to draw me back, and it does so less and less now. So will I rewatch this one? Probably, but not anytime soon. Final verdict. Deeply flawed movie that lacks the suspense and pseudo-intellectual curiosity of the first film. And it replaces it with over-the-top gore, absurd sex scenes, and tonal whiplash. Yet despite its many faults, or maybe because of them, it actually remains a strangely watchable piece of late 90s sci-fi sleaze. It's definitely got its place to watch at a certain time, late at night, when you got nothing else to do. Overall for a score, Species 2 gets a 5.5 out of 10. There you have it. That is my review of Species 2. Have you seen this film? If you have, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below, because I am keen to hear your thoughts on this one. Like I said, I have some very, specific thoughts on this one. I did enjoy it when it first came out, but it just hasn't aged well. So going back and rewatching it now, it doesn't have that same effect on me. And look, maybe that's because, 98, I was a much younger fella there, and Natasha Henstridge was a huge draw card to this movie. Don't get me wrong, the rest of the cast of special effects, they all contributed to why I watched it back then. It just doesn't hold up today. So what are your thoughts on this one? Let me know. And look, if you haven't already, please do hit that thumbs up button. Be much appreciated. And if you like hearing about these films, if you want to, join everyone else, hit that subscribe button down below. Hit the notification bell so that way you're notified every time I do release a new review. I've got my Trashy Tuesdays, of course, Franchise Fridays, got a few other things on the go. I'm going to try and do more live streams and whatnot, so fingers crossed they'll be coming along soon, some watch parties, etc. So yeah, they're always going to be a lot of fun, and I am trying to do some more and more stuff, so keep an eye out for that, and thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.